Hello, friends, and welcome to Pothos Sound, where we are all about growing our sound. My name is Andrew, and I am excited to get started on a new instrument in Kontakt, and I want to note first and foremost that this series is going to be more about assembling the different components of a Kontakt instrument into an actual Kontakt instrument. So we're not going to be focused so much on creating samples and creating too many graphic assets. We're going to do a little bit of that, but more about putting those pieces together and sharing my process with you of kind of what I've found works for me when it comes to coming up with a new concept for an instrument and creating and assembling all the pieces. So we're going to use a sample library that I have from a company called Ghosthack. They've got I think it's called the Ultimate Vocal Library. It's some female vocal samples. They've got a bank of a bunch of sounds and phrases and words and stuff. So we're going to use some of the word samples to put in Kontakt. We're going to create some graphic assets to make a home for some simple controls. It's going to have a few effects. It's not going to be anything too crazy, but I want to go through the process with you and share what that looks like. Now, the first thing I like to do when I begin sketching out an idea for a new instrument is actually write some ideas down by hand. So if you are down to hang with me for the next 10 to 12 minutes or so as I come up with some ideas in my notebook, this video is for you. And before we get started, I just want to sincerely thank you for watching this video. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start mapping out some of the key features of the instrument that we want to have. Okay, so this is the Ghosthack Ultimate Vocal Library, and we're going to be doing this in Kontakt. And Kontakt is really cool because it has a bunch of built-in effects and features and things like that, including some processing that's going to help us keep some of the vocal phrases in time. So, key features. I know for sure I'm going to want pitch adjustment. Okay, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to have sort of like a synthesizer unison function where we maintain the initial pitch for like layer 1, and then we have a secondary pitch that can be adjusted. So pitch adjustment, and we'll say like a 2-layer system. So each layer would play back the same sample, but one of the samples or both can be adjusted with pitch. So 2-layer playback. I know that doesn't make much sense now, but that should soon once we get to actually building the instrument. For sure, we're going to want some delay controls. We're going to want reverb. And let's see, delay, reverb. Maybe we keep it simple. Maybe we just do this. Whoa, you know what? And actually, I'm forgetting filters. Course, and we're going to want an HP high pass, and we're going to want an LP low pass. So this will sort of give us a little bit better control where we can create a band pass if we want, or we can automate and modulate some of this stuff. So far, again, I know I want pitch adjustment. I want that pitch adjustment to be adjustable with sort of 2 layers. And then for basic effects, we're going to use some delay, reverb, and filters. And this is sort of the point where I need to break down exactly what controls we want to have for these effects, because we can't create the user interface without knowing exactly what controls we need to put on the user interface. So let's start by sort of breaking down. I think that the filters are easy. So for the filters, we're going to need a cutoff knob. We're going to need a resonance knob. That's going to be for high pass and low pass. So really what we need is, let's actually start to list this out. So control number 1 is going to be the low pass cutoff. Control number 2 will be the low pass resonance. 3 will be the high pass cutoff, and 4 will be the high pass resonance. And then we want to do delay and reverb. So I'm going to do delay first because I want to make sure that the delayed signal has reverb on it. So let's do delay. And delay can be pretty simple, where we have the mix amount. We're going to need feedback rate, and this needs to be synced. So this would mean like quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, things like that. So we need to have a sync select, and I don't know if this needs to be a menu or knob. Not sure. Oh, ping pong. We're going to want that as an option. Ping pong. This will be a button. Okay, and then let's also think about the reverb. So for reverb, I know that we're going to just use the standard Kontakt reverb, not the convolution reverb, just for the sake of simplicity. So we're going to need the type select, and that's going to be a menu. Time, pre-delay, and then mix. So I think that should do. And in terms of overall controls, this isn't too bad. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 total controls. So 12 controls. But this isn't the only on-screen stuff that we're going to want, and we'll start to hash some of that out once we get into the actual UI side of things. But I think this is a good start in terms of what we need to account for when we start sketching out the actual look and feel of the user interface. And I just realized I need to also account a couple knobs for the pitch adjustment. So instead of 12, we'll probably have 14. So 14 or so controls, something like that. And these are all going to mostly be knobs. We'll get to making a knob and knob in later on. But there we go. Got to make sure I have the pitch on there as well. So in Kontakt, the user interfaces can be up to 1,000 pixels wide, and the default width for Kontakt instruments, I believe, is 633 pixels. So I want to take it a little bit wider. I want my interface to be about 700 pixels wide. We'll go with 700 exact for now, and then 400 pixels tall. But we do have to account for the 68 pixels that the header takes up. And I can't remember exactly how it renders the top, but when I get in Photoshop, I'll make sure that I have a 68 pixel rectangle basically at the top to account for the actual header that's in Kontakt. Now, I mentioned on my features sketch that I want there to be sort of a dual layer playback, and I mentioned 14 controls. It may be a little bit more than that actually, because we also want to make sure that we have volume control for each of the layers, so that again we have just a little bit more fine-tuned control of the two layers playing back at the same time, so that if we want to turn the pitch for layer 2 down by an octave, we can turn the volume down a little bit more as well. So I think I want to break this up so that we have like a layer 1 thing over here, and then something over here, layer 2, and right underneath each of these, so we'll sort of separate it like this. I want there to be the knob for, this will be pitch, kind of like this, and then we'll have I guess a volume, VOL, that'll work. And I'm wondering if we should have filters for both as well. So we would basically have the 4 filters, the 4 filter controls for each of these. So we could probably do something pretty simple where it's, 3 rows of 2 rather, or 2 columns, kind of like this, where we have the frequency and then the cutoff, kind of like this. And my sketches are not legible, but I at least know what's going on here. So cut off. Okay, so something like this, and then down in the bottom we have the controls for delay. So we would have mix, feedback, rate, and the ping pong button. So I'm thinking maybe we have the ping pong over here, and then we have a menu for the rate. Okay, and then we have our knobs 1 and 2 for feedback and mix amount. Okay, and then we also should have dots along here for bypass. So I'm thinking I'm just going to do a simple dot where when it's colored in, it's active, and when it's not, it's bypassed. And we can do the same thing for the filters, although yeah, we'll just do a dot here and a dot here. And I'll make sure to fill in the help text in Kontakt to help the user know whether or not something is bypassed or not, or actually activated. So we've got the delay controls. So DLY. And then over here for the reverb, we're going to need a menu for the type, which kind of comes first. So we'll do a menu. This type, and that'll either be room or hall. Only 2 selections, so that makes it easy. And in fact, we could probably make this into a button instead, since there's only 2 options. So maybe we do that as, instead of a menu, we do a button. So when we're doing the scripting, it'll say if button is 0, it's a room, and if it's a value of 1, it's a hall. So again, I'm just gonna notate that this should be a button. And we can make the button update the text to reflect which selection we have. Okay, and then we need pre-delay, time, and the mix amount. Pretty easy couple knobs. Pre-delay, time, mix amount. Now, one thing that I want to do is actually have a waveform view. So I'm thinking in the middle, instead of having a big column down the, like a line separating these the whole way, like in this area here, I want to have a waveform. And I want the waveform to display, obviously the waveform itself, but also the playback line. So we'll want to have a playback line. So for the waveform, we'll include the playback line. So that'll be really helpful. Oh, and then we want this to update. Okay, cool. So we're looking good so far, and we just need to label these. So this will be pre, this will be time, mix. So yeah, I'm feeling good about this. We've got a concept. We know that the header is going to be up here. We've got the controls for each of the layers so that we can control the pitch and the volume for each of them. We've got frequency and cutoff for each of them, and we've got a waveform view that's going to go in the middle. We've got some controls down here for sort of the global effects, the delay and the reverb, and then we've got the little bypass buttons right here, and I should notate that the dots are bypass. So let's BTN, so bypass buttons. Yeah, I'm feeling good about this. I think the next step is going to be to hop into Photoshop and get this like mock-up actually looking like something. Before we hop into Photoshop though, I am going to go ahead and call this a video because I don't want each of these to be too terribly long, but it will be exciting to start bringing this concept to life in Photoshop, developing a color scheme and actually getting a background in place and making sure that all of our elements are actually going to fit properly within the 700 by 400 pixel space that we have to work with. Of course, I invite you to like and subscribe to make sure you're staying tuned for those future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.